like to call to order the board meeting February 5th. Please stand for the pledge. Roll call.
Mr. Casey? Present. Mrs. Cognetti? Present. Mr. Duffy?
Present.
Ms. Gilmartin? Present. Mr. Bush?
Here.
Mr. McAndrew?
Present.
Mrs. Oleski?
Present via satellite or whatever.
Mr. Schuster?
Present.
Mrs. Dixon?
Present.
9 present.
The solicitor's report. Attorney Menor.
Executive sessions were held on November 20th, 2017, December 14th, 2017, December 18th, 2017, and this evening to discuss personnel litigation, real estate, and negotiations.
Student representative. I'm going to ask Director Gilmartin to take over in this.
I'm delighted to invite Mr. Doherty and his students to tell us a little bit about the Crunch program and their digital media lab. I had the pleasure of attending a Crunch session with Ms. Hall the other day, and it was fantastic. I really enjoyed myself, so thank you.
Good evening. I'm Paul Doherty, and I'm so proud to be the principal at West Scranton Intermediate School. I'd like to thank the school board for giving our students the opportunity to speak tonight. And I brought with me 7th grade honor roll students Emily Stevens and Autumn Walsh, and they're going to talk about 2 dynamic things we have going on at West Scranton Intermediate.
Hello, I'm Emily and this is Autumn. We're both students at West Scranton Intermediate School. We'd first like to thank School Board Director Katie Gilmartin and the entire school board for inviting us to share some exciting news about 2 projects at West Scranton Intermediate. In career news, Mrs. Marcy Bonansky, school counselor, started a new initiative at West Scranton Intermediate School. The program is called Crunch. It stands for Career Lunch. Careers and lunches combine forces to open the new world of work to West Scranton Intermediate School students. Mrs. Bonansky has coordinated with local professionals, parents, and former SSD graduates to join middle school students for lunch and talk about their career journey and dream jobs as part of the Scranton School District's Career Exploration Program for intermediate school students. WSIS has already hosted a nurse practitioner, a healthcare service provider, a certified medical assistant from the Wright Center. Just recently, Sarah Hofers Hall from the Scranton Times gave a question and answer segment about careers in journalism and her experiences as a writer. Additionally, guest speakers from the Career Technology Center will visit Crunch. Our upcoming events regarding careers include a Mason on February 7th, a speaker in commercial and advertising design on March 7th, and School Board Director Mike McAndrew will discuss his role in culinary arts on April 4th. Lastly, in May, a Scranton police officer and K-9 unit have been scheduled. Crunch is first come, first serve across all grade levels. Sign-ups take place during homeroom 1 week prior to a guest speaker. Students may ask questions and participate in group discussions on careers. All students are encouraged to join Crunch and to bring a friend.
Hi, I'm Autumn, and in STEM News, the second project we'd like to highlight is the Digital Media Studio we've been working on since the beginning of the year. Mr. Mulhern and the Pride Homeroom students have transferred the old analog TV studio into a high-definition mass communication center. We've added a huge green screen and digital broadcasting technology. Among the many STEM skills we've learned are how to set up digital camcorders and lighting, edit and stream video, edit audio files, schedule and interview guests, and generate visual graphics. We've named our production Bleed Blue Productions and just completed and streamed our first Good Morning Invaders digital news show. It is accessible not only to faculty and students, but the Scranton community as well. Our online show is available by simply clicking on a web link, and at last count had been viewed over 1,000 times. We will be producing a Good Morning Invaders show on a recurring basis with the goal of 1 show a week by the end of the year. This project could not be possible without several outside sources. King's College Mass Communications Program students under the supervision of Scott Wildland, corporate partner Simplex Homes for green screen building materials, a charitable donation from the Scranton Women's Teachers Club, the Scranton School District IT Department, and of course the leadership and support of the West Scranton Intermediate Schools administration and faculty. Again, thank you for inviting us to share these accomplishments with you. And as our principal, Mr. Doherty, always says, West is best.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Wonderful job. Superintendent's report.
Yes. Good evening, everyone, and welcome. We are in the midst of winter weather here in northeastern Pennsylvania, and I want you to know that there is a team of people who work together in making the call whether to close or delay school in the event of inclement weather. I do get a lot of advice from our students each morning asking whether we are going to close school for the day or not, and I try to reassure them that many people are working on this behind the scenes. We take many things into consideration when we are determining whether to delay or close schools. First and foremost is safety for our students, faculty, and staff. Instructional time and instructional days required by the state. Our graduation dates and the school calendar, testing schedules, and other important events that affect our students. We would like you to check the website as there is important information regularly updated regarding school closings. And I would like to thank you in advance for your patience as we try to get through this winter and get those calls right. Despite the cold weather, though, and the snow, our students are actively involved in academics, arts, and athletics all across the district. Just last week, I had the opportunity to sit in on a West Scranton High School class where students were studying the play Macbeth. And I enjoyed watching West Scranton Intermediate School first live broadcast, which you just heard about tonight. And yes, West is best, and we do bleed blue here. The National PTA Reflection Dinner was held Sunday, January 28th. This year's theme, Within Reach, sparked the imagination and creativity of many of our students. 43 students from across the district were recognized as winners in the arts in all areas. Each year, hundreds of thousands of students compete from across the country, and we have several winners from Westside High School that have been named to compete in state competition. The Scranton School District has received good news on our APEX program. A review which was conducted by APEX indicated that the program is having a positive impact on students. 97% of our students who have signed up have accessed the courses and are working with our Scranton School District teachers in this type of learning environment. Our business partner program continues to flourish with a myriad of opportunities provided to benefit our students. And you just heard about one of those opportunities this evening. Through these community business partners, we have begun to give students additional opportunity, knowledge, exposure to community representatives, and resources outside and inside of the classroom. We are continuing to discuss several partnerships with local colleges that will align with the standards set for the Every Student Succeeds Act. These partnerships will complement all disciplines and other academic values to provide Scranton students with college and career readiness standards which ensure that all graduates will be competent to enter the world of work or post-secondary education. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Dr. Kirian. Now it's time for our public comment. We have speakers that signed up this evening. You may address the board on any agenda item. We're asking that you stay within the allotted time of 3 minutes so we can have every speaker speak this evening. Our first speaker of the evening is Ms. Rosemary Boland.
Good evening, directors. Looking at your agenda, we have a few items to question. We noticed that in your packet, you're going to hire Attorney John Audi as special counsel, and it's done retroactively. We also noticed that you're going to hire, or have already hired, a special education attorney, and we also know we already have a solicitor, Mr. Menor. So if we're doing something retroactively, it means the service has already been provided. So we need to know what service was provided, what was the hourly rate of pay for Mr. Audi, and when did Mr. Audi's contract go out for bid. Any bid, according to this school board, of over $10,000, you voted to put that out for bid, any service contract. Since we don't know the number of hours Mr. Audi is going to be employed, you have laid off 97 teachers, and I was just handed another teacher's notice of furlough about 25 minutes ago. So that would take us to 98 hearing dates. If Mr. Audi is paid by the hour, I would say that contract should have been put out for bid, and it was not. The special education attorney, we see in the packet tonight numerous charges. If those charges exceed $10,000, you're violating your own policy yet again. I think it's high time we paid special attention to the fact that we just furloughed in the Scranton School District 98 people. And you have 3 lawyers on your staff, and you're not supposed to be spending money. This is a financial watch, and you're violating your own policies. When were these contracts put out for bid, and when did you vote on them? Because I attend these meetings, and there were no votes. Somebody has to have an answer. We also noticed that you're going to approve the NEIU budget, and you've already approved the CTC budget. I find it most amazing that this board is willing to give promotional raises for our share of the freight at both of these institutions, and the members of those institutions don't pay for health care. They don't pay toward premium, but yet all of the faculty members in this district, our paraprofessionals included, pay toward premium. And yet, nobody blinks an eye when you cast your vote to approve budgets for both of these other institutions. This seems to be, shall we say, a shame. We also know that the district attorney's office has been contacted by this board, and that you want the monies returned. You're not the only one that wants the monies returned. And if the gentleman in question had husband and wife, that's in excess of $22,000 per year that's owed back to this district. And since there was never a vote publicly on that issue, we'd like to know how much money that is going to bring in. Tonight, Mr. Laffey said there was something in the budget about $30,000 for field trips. We'd like to know what field trips cost $30,000, since from my earliest days in this district, the teachers had to collect the money and raise the money to take students on field trips. So we'd like that to be straightened out for the public. When the teachers take kids on field trips, they're raising the money to do that. There may be exceptions, we don't know what they are. We'd like to know that. And regarding permissions to attend, why do we have permissions to attend we're in financial watch. Any other time in the history of this board, and some people know, once school started in September, if this district was in trouble, and it was a lot, we were in what was called a freeze, not mandated by the state of Pennsylvania, but by this board. Nobody could ask for anything from September through December 31st. Now all of a sudden, school meeting after school meeting, we're seeing permissions to attend and outside entities. We don't understand that. We're in a financial crisis, money is tight, that's what I hear every school board meeting. Then why are we spending money on this stuff? There's no reason that we have to do these things. We don't. Tighten the belt and stop spending money needlessly. And we need to start to look at your own policies and why you're violating them. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Rowland. Mr. Lozada?
Madam President, directors, administrators. I'm Robert Lozada. I'm a music educator at Northeastern Intermediate School, Scranton School District. Both my children went through the Scranton School District, and due in no small part from the efforts of my colleagues behind me, they graduated with honors, were able to attend their first college of choice. My daughter graduated a year ago from Rhode Island School of Design. My son is in his final year at the Rochester Institute of Technology. I don't have a flowery speech prepared for you. I'm going to leave that to the more capable and eloquent members of the audience behind me. But I do have some questions, and if anybody can answer them, I would be appreciative. Under your new program, or your budget program for the 18-19 school year, will physical education be offered in 6th grade? Does anybody have an answer?
Dr. Kieran? We're going to be offering physical education is that the 6th grade? Our students will have physical education in the 6th grade. That meets the state requirement under that particular age and grade.
Thank you, Dr. Kieran. Is physical education offered in 7th grade?
Students will not.
I have a no?
I was going to say
yeah,
students,
okay.
Students will not have the opportunity to take physical education in the 7th
Thank you.
or 8th grade.
Or 8th grade, okay.
But they will in the 9th grade, which again falls within
The state,
the grade
state guidelines,
state
you understand. Is music offered in 6th grade?
Yes, it is.
Is music offered in 7th grade?
No, it is not.
Is music offered in 8th grade?
No, it is not.
Have the parents been notified about this?
This is.
I appreciate it, but I would like to hear from Dr. Kieran.
This was presented at the board meeting at South Scranton Intermediate School, and parents will receive a letter explaining the intermediate school program.
Thank you.
Curtailments.
Okay, is extracurricular sports, is that still being offered in the 18-19 school year?
Extracurricular.
Football, baseball?
Intramural sports.
Yes.
Are you talking about at the intermediate school or the high school?
Both.
At the intermediate school, we are offering intramural sports for students. At the high school, we are offering the same sports we have now for this school year.
How many students does that benefit, you know, offhand?
Honestly, I do not have that number, but earlier this evening, we had a budget and finance committee, and the decision was made to evaluate and assess the sports program for the high school, all sports.
Would you say it benefits maybe 300 students? A lot of them take football and basketball.
I don't want to guess
Anybody have
on that.
a number possibly?
But we'll have the information available for you.
Do we know how, you just had a budget meeting on that, do we know how much it
Just
costs?
earlier this evening.
Do we know what the intramural or the extracurricular sports
We've
activities?
done an initial analysis. We don't have the final numbers yet.
Do you have a ballpark number?
Not that I'm willing to share this
Movie.
evening, but we'll be happy to do it when
Okay.
we have accurate and complete
I appreciate that.
information.
I'm just curious, the reason I'm asking this is it seems like, let's say it benefits 400 students. You've got, what, a population in the middle schools of about 2,400 students, I would say? Does that sound about right? Okay. Wouldn't it make sense to take the, I'm assuming it's probably going to be around the $200,000, $300,000 area for the sports. Wouldn't it make more sense to take that money and restore the music program, the physical education programs in the middle schools where the students are going to benefit? Because, I mean, our students, especially in the music program, in my school, I would say there's 10 students out of the population of close to 900 who have their own instruments to bring to school. Not 10% of our students, 10 students out of 900 that are able to afford this. Most students aren't going to be able to take music outside of school because they just cannot afford it. Socioeconomic problems in the district. And yet we're taking it away from them on 7th and 8th grade. Are we still keeping music in the high school?
Yes, we are.
Is that sound educational philosophy to have a hiatus of 2 years in a particular program and then restart it in the high school? I mean, would we do that with English language arts, or would we do that with math? Would we do that with science, where we say, you know what, kids, take 2 years off. You're going to be able to catch up, no problem, right at the high school. Is that sound educational philosophy? I'm curious.
Well, I guess you are making the recommendation that it's not.
I think yes.
I think you have some recommendations that I'm hearing this evening, but you're putting them in terms of questions instead of coming forward and saying, these are my recommendations.
Correct.
So I hear what you're saying, but it's kind of getting at it in a roundabout way.
Well, I understand, but usually, I mean, it's without asking the questions, we don't often get the answers offered to us. So we have to ask the questions. Anyway, is that my time? Okay. My apologies for going over if I did. Thank you for your answers.
And I'm always available by email or to come see me and talk about whatever concerns you have. If we're not answering your questions, I need to know that there's always room for improvement.
I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lozada. Gerard, I think it's Hetman. Is it Hetman?
That's right.
Good guess.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the Scranton School District. Most of you know me from my previous visits to the board. For the benefit of the new members and for everyone in the audience, my name is Gerard Hetman. I represent the Lackawanna County Commissioner's Office through our Department of Community Relations. To give you a brief overview, again, for folks that may be new, I typically attend on a bi-monthly basis, if you stick to your normal schedule, the regular school board meetings on behalf of the Commissioner's Office. I normally provide a brief overview of upcoming events, programs, activities, and any other events or initiatives that may be going on at the county level of government. Of course, I'm always welcome to take your questions. You can give me any feedback that you'd like, and I'm also available after the meetings for anyone on the board, the administrators, or anyone in the audience here to speak to, again, about anything we mentioned, or anything that may be related to county government that you may have a question or a comment or a suggestion on. So to give you our announcements for this month, for the start of the year, and again, for the new folks, this is the format we typically follow. Most of our stuff early in the year comes from Penn State Extension's office in Lackawanna County. They run a variety of different programs. During the winter months, most of their activities take place inside, but once the warm weather comes, they do more things outside, particularly relating to their Master Gardener training program. And that's the first item that we have. They're gearing up this year to offer their Master Gardener training. This is something more for adults, but we mention it anyway because they do a lot of good work in the community, a lot of things that are visible here in the district, especially downtown. Their planter project always gets a lot of attention, but they do lots of good things. Master Gardeners are a program designed for folks who enjoy gardening, landscaping, home-based planting, horticulture, that type of stuff. They're folks who volunteer. They go through a pretty intensive training program, and then once their training is finished, they stay in the program as Master Gardeners. They share tips and best practices, also get into a lot of community service, make themselves available to the public for anyone who has questions or wants advice on those topics. So they've got a variety of different information sessions coming up. One that's in the district here is this Saturday, February 10th at noon at the Greenhouse Project at Dow Park. So anyone wants to know more about the Master Gardener Project, can feel free to swing by that. It's a really good group. We've seen people join it in the past that we've talked to. They come back 2 or 3 years later and say, boy, this is great. I never knew I could learn this much about this stuff. It's awesome. So people stick. It's a really ongoing, long-running program that we see a lot of success with. Also, Penn State Extension is offering their food safety certification course. This is something that's required for a lot of folks that work in the food service industry. It's coming up on February 19th and February 26th. It's a 2-day program at Penn State Worthington Scranton. And also, Penn State Extension is offering their strength training classes for quote-unquote older adults. This is a statewide definition, but it's for anyone aged 40 and up. So not what we would call an older adult necessarily, but we see lots of good feedback from folks who take this program. It's offered at the West Scranton Community Center beginning February 7th. And it basically deals with nutrition, basic exercise, things like sleep wellness, that type of stuff. Again, folks sometimes stick with it. We see really good feedback from people that benefit, again, aimed at daily living, just good, healthy, general living habits that people can use as they get a little bit older. So again, there's registration fees for these programs. They vary from course to course. Each one has some individual information that we'll leave with Mrs. Orr. And I should just note, we do have a good working relationship between the Commissioner's office and, in my case, Mrs. Orr is my contact. So any month that I'm not here at the meeting, we'll always make sure to get my information to her beforehand so you can have it to review. And again, sometimes she comes with us, to us with questions. We go to her office and also the superintendent's office. We've worked well together. So we've got a good dynamic between the county and the school district, and we'll look forward to keeping that going. You'll see a lot of stuff come up from us throughout the year. A couple things from Parks and Recreation. The only one we have open now is our winter golf clinic, but we'll see lots more throughout the year from them. We also do some events in the Commissioner's office, public outreach events, and different stuff, again, that comes up on an as-needed basis from programs like the Area Agency on Aging, Children and Youth, sometimes even offices such as the Sheriff's Office will partner up with when it's appropriate. And again, it's things you've seen from us in the past. For those of you that have been here, we anticipate doing the same program generally this coming year. So looking forward to working with you as always. We'll see you again as soon as the schedule permits, most likely in 2 months from now. So until then, all the best. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hepburn. Mr. Lally and Mr. Suppan.
Good evening, school board members, central administration, and guests. With the proposed changes, we as a West Scranton High School community are excited to potentially welcome students coming to us from various areas within Scranton. I am certain that, as I have, these students will experience the same positive energy and impact of being part of the West Scranton High School family. They will have the possibility of gaining an education from our terrific and dedicated staff. In addition, these students will be able to continue to acquire the skills necessary for them to be competitive nationally among their peers. With our increased AP test scores, increased SAT scores, and increased school performance profile, they too will get to be part of the family that is moving onward and upward educationally. I have no doubt that in the last 2 years, Mr. Suppan and I have worked with the staff diligently, and that the potentially incoming students will have those same opportunities that students currently in the Westside Scranton High School have. Mr. Suppan will now speak to some of our extracurricular activities that these potential incoming students could benefit from.
Thank you, Mr. Lally. First, I want to start it off by thanking the school board and Dr. Curian for allowing us the opportunity to speak. We came here today briefly to bring light on the amount of opportunities we have here at West Scranton. With West Scranton high school numbers potentially increasing with the extension of its boundaries, it brings much opportunity to the students that will attend this great school. We have implemented many new programs into this institution. One example would be our Westside Sidekicks program. This program has flourished over the past couple of years and continues to grow. This program matches students up with our autistic support and life skills students. They build bonds with each other through a multitude of avenues. They may eat lunch together, go to class together, participate in athletics together, or assist each other in assignments. Through this program, we have increased school morale and created a tighter community. Another example would be our therapy dog program. We partnered up with a service dog company to come and visit our students monthly. The dogs visit all our students when they are here and always make it a point to stop at our emotional support, our life skills, autistic support, and cafeteria. The dogs help instill a positive attitude within the walls of West High. We have also implemented truancy competitions to increase student attendance. and eliminate student absenteeism. Students in homerooms receive gift cards and class prizes such as cookouts for high attendance rates. We have maintained and implemented a multitude of clubs, which there's too many to name, but I'll name a couple. We have art clubs, drama clubs, French clubs, gaming clubs, journalism clubs. We have our marching band, which is excellent, our mock trial, our Students Against Destructive Decisions, our ski clubs, our Spanish clubs, and there's much more than that. We have implemented 4.0 pizza parties. Every quarter, each student that receives straight A's or gets straight A's gets a 4.0 pizza party, and we also give them a dress down every single Friday for that quarter. We've seen many students that were close to getting straight A's, and now with the implementation of this program, they're striving to get it each and every quarter in order to achieve the 4.0 pizza party and the dress downs every Friday. We also have instilled in our athletic programs the meaning of what it means to be a student athlete. Many of our sports programs are hitting extreme highs in regards to team and individual GPAs. Each and every coach in our school requires their players to succeed in the classroom before the field. Their progress in the books and character is portrayed on a daily basis here at West. We have also implemented an emergency bucket system to utilize in case of a school lockdown or emergency shooter scenario. We couldn't have done this without working with our community partner, Pennsylvania Ambulance. Each classroom now has an emergency bucket located in it with supplies that can assist in a school emergency. Pennsylvania Ambulance is also coming in on our next Act 80 to train our faculty on how to use the supplies in the bucket. They have helped create a safer educational institution, and our community bond has strengthened as a result. This is just to name a few of the many opportunities, procedures, and programs we have here at West. We look forward to the possible increase in enrollment. We believe in our hearts that the opportunities to grow here at West are abundant, and we'll continue to implement new and exciting opportunities and build off our current ones. Thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Good job, guys.
Thank you, Mr. Lally and Mr. Supine. Erica Aguilar?
Hello, my name is Erica Aguilar and I am a junior at Scranton High School. I never thought I would be up here talking. I also never thought that my favorite teacher would be in jeopardy of losing her job, but I guess the unthinkable can happen. My strings teacher, Miss Yerke, was informed 2 weeks ago that she had lost her job. I was in my third period class when I heard about the news, but the thought of not having her next year as a teacher just shattered my heart. I have been in strings for the past 7 years, and I have been with Miss Yerke for the past 3. It took me 3 of those years to learn how to play the viola, and during those years I formed a strong bond with her that I do not have with other teachers. The strings class teaches you how to play an instrument and how to read music. However, her job does not just consist of that. It also consists of becoming a better musician and a better person. She teaches you how to work well with other people, and she teaches students how to be kind and how to be determined in whatever they put their mind to. She is one of the greatest teachers at Scranton High, and it disappoints me that the Scranton School District furloughed her. You're making a mistake if you let her go, because you're not only putting our musical education at risk, we are also ruining the bond that Ms. Yerke has established with all of her students at Scranton High. The future students that will attend Scranton High will not be aware of the amazing teacher Ms. Yerke is, so I beg you all to please reconsider this. Thank you.
Thank you, Erica. Carmen Reyes?
Good evening, Dr. Kirian, Scranton School Board members, and all the auditorium tonight. My name is Carmen Reyes. I am a junior at West Scranton High School. I'm a former student of Ms. Gilmer's journalism class. Along with Shane McHugh, we are the technical advisors of the school newspaper, The West Side Story. We are beginning the process of writing and publishing our second edition of the year. However, I would like to present you our first edition. We have learned the functions of high school newspaper, and I believe we have fulfilled these functions through our journey. I hope you enjoyed reading the West Side Story as much as we enjoyed publishing it. Thank you.
Thank you, Carmen. Hannah Decker. Oh, that's you? Are you speaking? Okay. Thank you.
Good evening, Dr. Curian and school board members. My name is Hannah Decker. I am a senior at West Scranton High School. I'm the president of the Student Council. And on behalf of the Pride team here at West, we would like to offer you all of our 2017-2018 spirit wear. I helped in designing this shirt, actually, and it's really cool to see that my design is on a shirt.
Thank you, Hannah.
Thank you, Hannah.
Watch it on the wire. That's beautiful. Oh, thank you. Very nice.
Thank you, honey.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Be careful, Hannah. Okay. Thank you very much. I think I speak on behalf of the entire board. That was very nice.
Absolutely, thank you.
Judy Kilmer.
Good evening, Scranton School Board and Dr. Carrion and everyone in the auditorium tonight. My name is Judy Kilmer. I am a teacher here at West Scranton High School. And I'd like to talk to you about something else tonight, something completely different. About 20 years ago, I was here about 20 years ago, as was Mrs. Dixon. And Mrs. Dixon and her class and some of us got together and we formed the West Scranton Alumni Association. Mrs. Dixon's classes put forth a plan, and it was a wonderful situation. It was not an easy task. Okay, but we formed the West Scranton High School Alumni Association. We did our first West Scranton directory, West Scranton Alumni Directory. We did fundraising. We had, and what we did with the money that we earned was that we gave scholarships to graduating seniors on graduation night. It was a wonderful, wonderful situation. However, people moved on, people moved away, and the association somehow started to decline. However, we still had a small group of people who put together the second alumni book as well as the third alumni book. And now I'm working on the fourth, and this will be my last alumni book. We're looking for somebody else to pick it up. However, the object is, I've had so many people talk to me about resurrecting the Alumni Association. And so we plan on doing this. And we plan on doing it in a different sort of a way, though. What we would like to do is sponsor buy a locker or buy a door and let the West Scranton community come together and prove its legacy and start, buying things. For example, if you buy a locker, you'll get your family name on that locker. We do need some tentative prices so that when we do the paperwork, we can let people know how much a locker would cost, how much a door would cost. I think that this would be a wonderful way to bring West Scranton together again, no matter where people are. We have a lot of young people right now interested in doing this, people who have just graduated within the last 5 to 10 years. And so we're going to come together and bring that community together again and see if we can make our alumni part of the legacy of West Scranton High School. All I'm asking for you is a little cooperation and some prices. Okay?
We could get that, right, Mark? We could get that.
Absolutely.
Some, at least tentative prices. Lockers, we were thinking about, lockers, especially if we can do the first floor, and then perhaps the doors, the classroom doors, I think might be nice, because many of them are, they really do need work, and if we could get, like maybe a family to come in together and buy a door and put a plaque on the top of that door, whatever family it is. But we need some prices and, some vendors and, that sort of thing.
Yeah, I'm sure that if we put together a list of what you're looking for, Mr. Brazil can easily access that and we can get this moving quickly.
All right, we're going to get it together, Mrs. Martin and I and a few other people, and we'll come up with some paperwork and, and everything that we need, and we'll make sure you have it, and we can, come up with some prices so that we know how much to ask people to donate. I think it'll be a wonderful thing for West Scranton. After all, this building is close to 100 years old. It has a great, great legacy, and I think we'll have many, many people who would like to be part of that legacy.
Mrs. Kilmer, first of all, I can't believe it's 20 years ago.
Well, yeah.
Second of all, if you in your archives could find that class that were the charter members that started that, I would love to send them this plan to see that what they started is continuing. Thank you.
Well, we're going to give it a try, and as I said, we have a lot of young people, at least a few, who would like to continue it, and then they can take it over at some point in time. Because this is the 4th book. I did the last one alone. I'm doing this one just about alone. And so if we could pass it on to the younger kids, and they could start to do it. Thank you.
Great idea. Thank you.
Mrs. Kilmer, count me in for whatever you need. It's a great idea.
Okay, thank you.
I'll take a locker.
Okay, thank you.
Holly Mead.
My name is Holly Mead. I'm a special education teacher at Northeast Intermediate School. On delay day, students no longer are served breakfast, only lunch. At the intermediate school, our lunches begin at 12:48 and they end at 2:19. Some of our students don't actually even get their lunch until 2 p.m. I would like to see if we could bring the breakfast back on delay days, and I'd like to know if we're losing any federal money on the days our students are not receiving those breakfasts.
Holly, we'll look, this is the first I've heard of that. We'll definitely look into your schedule and what's happening at your school and others. And I'll have Mr. Laffey.
The kids are really starving, and I'm coming here on behalf of them. Oh, it wasn't so bad on Friday, but this Monday it was so apparent that they were starving. And I just think it's sad they don't get breakfast on delay days. I know it's an inconvenience, but I think they should.
No, we'll definitely look into that.
My next question is, next year will all intermediate school sports be cut, including baseball, basketball, softball, cheerleading, and wrestling?
The interscholastic sports are being...
Is that basketball, baseball, softball, cheerleading, and wrestling?
Any sport they play against another school outside of our district. Intramural sports will be offered, and those will be sports.
What are intramurals?
Intramurals are sports that would be played against teams within your own school or teams in our own district.
So, for example, Northeast would not play Delmore in basketball, baseball, softball. Correct. Okay. So there won't be any of those sports then. For any sports that they would travel at all, there won't be those.
That's correct.
Okay. In September, when you accepted the cuts in the maintenance contract, all the library clerk positions were cut. 2 weeks ago, you cut all the librarians. Is it your plan to keep the libraries open?
Yes, the libraries will remain open.
Who's going to organize the books, order more books, or shelve the books?
Holly, I believe, and I don't have my paperwork in front of me, that there are 3 clerks who would be assigned to one each of the elementary schools. Is that correct, Mr. Gaynor?
At the intermediate level.
At the intermediate, I'm sorry.
So are there clerks at the elementary level or no?
No, there are not.
So how would they shelve and organize their books at the elementary?
That will be a responsibility at the local school level.
Okay. My next question is, I so appreciate the detailed agenda. Thank you so much for printing that out tonight. I noticed that you are retroactively hiring John Audi, and there was supposed to be a fee schedule attached. I didn't see it attached to this agenda. Can someone provide us a copy of that?
I can get that for you.
Okay. Do we know his fee schedule?
I know it was provided, I don't know if it's attached to the resolution. Yes, it is attached.
It wasn't attached in the public.
Sorry. Here.
Could you?
I'm going to give you that information, okay? Current hourly rate for chargeable time vary depending upon the complexity of the matter involved. For routine matters, the standard hourly rate of chargeable time is $150 an hour for attorneys and $125 an hour for legal assistants. For non-routine matters, it's $195 an hour for attorneys and $125 an hour for legal assistants.
Is that the same rate for Angela Evans, or is hers different?
No, I believe that's the same, although she's no longer with that firm, so I don't know if her rates have changed. She left recently, very recently, within the past month or two.
Okay.
Hang on, I'm not done.
I'm sorry.
Effective July 1st, 2018, the rates will be $160 an hour for attorneys and $125 an hour for legal assistants. But for non-routine matters, the fees will remain at $195 an hour for attorneys and $125 for legal assistants. So I believe there's a slight difference starting July 1 on the routine matters of $10 an hour. Okay?
Thank you. I appreciate that. I also looked on the detailed agenda on the resolution I-3, which talked about the school board and their policies and procedures. And it says that you wish to communicate clearly, promote open, honest, and respectful dialogue among board, staff, and community, and engage in input and support from the school district, for the school district from the community. I was curious as to why this resolution was added into the packet, since I would assume that everyone would do that on a regular basis.
I think they're reaffirming a principle that existed in the Book of Rules last year that was passed, and we just decided to do it by a separate resolution and reaffirm it to make it clearer.
Okay. I just have one more question, I'm sorry. Is there a board committee that works on contract negotiations?
I can tell you that our contract negotiations are communicated directly to the board as a whole.
Is there a board committee appointed to work on contract negotiations?
No, other than the Labor Relations Committee, no.
In some school districts, they have 2 or 3 board members that would attend those contract negotiations. I would recommend that. I think it would be helpful, especially in light of Resolution I-3, with your open and honest communication. I think the board might want to think of forming that committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Hal. Brian and Tracy, it looks like Rikas.
Good evening, board. My name is Tracy Regas. This is my husband Brian Regas. We have a special needs student over at Willard. He is in life skills class, and we were just told that his life skill teacher got a letter to be furloughed. He started out over at Neil Armstrong. Then all of the special education students, they all had to go to their home schools, which Willard is our home school. So we were like, okay, well, we got him tested for autism. But his life skills teacher over at Armstrong was moved over to Southside anyway. So we were like, well, we're just gonna keep him over at Willard. It's gonna be a change. Autistic children do not like change. But he adjusted very well. And Meg Duffy and Mr. Barakai, they are awesome over there. Oh my goodness. Larry Barakai is an awesome teacher. He deserves to stay. I know he's not tenured, but Hunter loves him. All of the students love him. So I was wondering why you're firing 10 special education teachers. There are many special ed students in our district. Do you like special ed? And also the special ed education students, they love the art and the music. My son, he listens to music all the time. And he loves to draw. And also, if there's no money for the teachers, why are we paying the lawyers?
It seems like with all these cuts, especially directed towards the special education, it's almost like families like ours and the other students are being shown that we're not welcome here.
Thank you. Jennifer Telesco.
Good evening, members of the board, administration, parents, concerned citizens, and my colleagues. I'm Jen Telesco, parent, city taxpayer, teacher, and SFT trustee. I actually just had a few points of clarification or questions regarding your budgetary cuts, including the teacher furloughs and some program cuts. First is the Latin program. I was just concerned because both teachers have been furloughed at Scranton High School and West Scranton High School, so my question is, where will this program be offered or take place because of this?
Mr. Gaynard, would you like to address that?
I believe those programs will still be in the school. There's a good chance that those teachers will be called back.
But it's not definitive. No. Okay. My second question has to do with regards of the teacher furloughs and program cuts. If you could elaborate on the areas in which you have a hiring freeze or no new hires where it actually applies to, especially considering the hiring of yet another attorney and retroactive hiring. So I know Ms. Boland spoke to this, but if you could clarify, how many attorneys do we actually have working for the district? And then what's the justification for hiring yet another one? In what area? I know you had special labor counsel, but I'm just interested in hearing what the, $150 an hour for the run-of-the-mill issues would be for this.
I think that just recognizes what his fee schedule is. His specific assignment here is to assist us with the furlough suspension process. There, as you know, have been a number of hearings that were requested on those, virtually every one, and it's a great amount of work. It's also an area of specialty that we as a district felt we needed help just in this specific instance.
How many, so we also have yourself and another attorney, so this would be the third?
I'm sorry.
Just employed by the district, I'm just clarification, yeah, not for a specific area. Just how many attorneys are working for the district?
I think it's essentially Sweet and Stevens, which is the John Audi law firm. They also assist with the specialized area of special education, which they do in almost every district.
Okay. I know there hasn't been, or if there was, you can correct me if I'm wrong, bidding or interviews for this. So is it easy to say that he will only be used for the furloughing process, or can we anticipate more per diem rates for other work?
I don't believe that the intention is to use it for anything other than the suspension process.
You can understand my concern for spending or allocating more money to help deal with cutting teachers and programs from students. It kind of seems pretty ironic.
It's to make certain that the suspensions are done properly.
Correct.
It's a brand new statute.
Understandably. I just wanted some clarification on it. And then my last point of clarification would be, I know with all of this talk of teacher or professional furloughing and cuts to programs, I know this came up at a prior meeting. I was just curious if you had a number of your non-union salaried employees and the percentage that you've included to lay off for that group. I know you applied for a waiver for administrative furloughs, but I was just concerned about that area.
I can address that. In the 16, let's see, we're in 17, 18 now. Our last school year, we had over $1 million cuts in our administrative staff across the district. I've shared that with you before.
No, I'm interested in the non-union salaried employees, the number that are to be laid off.
An equal percentage of administrators have to be furloughed, suspended.
No, not the administrative layoffs, the non-union salaried employees. They do not fall under your administrative group, and they are non-union members. There's a chunk of employees
Maybe
there.
Mr. Gaynor can answer that question. I thought you were talking about in reference to administrators in terms of Act 55.
At 55, we have to reduce by the same percentage as professional employees. For administrators, there is no provision in the Act for non-union.
I'm not actually asking about the act. I'm asking as far as your budgetary concerns and your restraints and where you're looking to make cuts. Has that been taken into account at all, that area?
Well, I think I answered your question, Jennifer, when I said that we have been working on this for several years now, and we have over $1 million worth of cuts that we've already made. I'll be happy to share that information with Ms. Boland.
I would really...
Dr. Curie.
Yes, Ms. Boland.
I'm going to interrupt for just 1 second because I've heard Ms. Glasgow ask this question. She is not talking about administrative leave. She's not talking about administrative cuts. She's talking about the group of non-unionized employees in the Scranton School District. They are not in part of the 893s. They're not 1147, and they're not 32BJ. They're non-unionized employees. That's what she's talking to you about. They are not included in Act 55.
Confidential secretaries?
Yes.
And that,
Do you have an actual number of how many are non-unionized salaried employees at hand?
Yes, we have it. We don't have it right here with us. I'll be happy to share that with Ms. Boland and she can pass it along.
But none of the positions have been eliminated that are in that certain area, not,
Yeah, that's not correct, Jennifer.
they have been? Or there have been?
Yes.
It's just a
there
question.
have been.
So far, for example, Mr. Sunday hasn't been replaced, Ms. Cartagna hasn't been replaced. They're not. Ms. Cartagna might be actually. Mr. Sunday is.
You're not asking about the non-tenured teachers. No.
The non-unionized,
Yeah.
non-administrative.
Jennifer, I think what is that?
They're asking about the confidential secretaries.
Yeah.
In that group.
Yeah.
Well, it's not just.
If you're talking specifically about confidential secretaries, 2 confidential secretaries left and have not been replaced, and 1 non-union secretary, another non-union secretary is slated to leave and will not be replaced.
Okay. It actually was a question for the entire group, not just looking at confidential secretary, so perhaps the right to know.
I know what you're
would be able
looking
to
for now. I
that.
do
Okay.
have that information, and I will share it with Ms. Bullen.
Thank you.
Thank you, Suzanne. Kevin Case?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Good evening, directors. I'm hearing a lot about cuts to administrative staff. In the last 2 years at Scranton High alone, we've seen 5 special education positions lost. We saw 2 English positions where there were retirees who were not replaced. Those positions are lost. 2 social studies, 1 math, 1 science position. So that's at Scranton High alone. So our staff has been reduced as well. So in light of what's coming with these furloughs, some teachers being furloughed, I guess the question is what additional administrative, because we've undergone reduction in staff as well in recent times. So anyway, 90-some teachers furloughed. The teachers union's been taking a bashing in many ways. The newspaper this morning was one prime example. We've never wanted to have contracts that include 300% of the going rate in the county, like some contractors are receiving. All we want is to remain competitive with other school districts so that we can continue to attract the best and the brightest into the profession here in Scranton. And I would hope, and I'm sure that most of you are in favor of that, continuing to be able to attract the best and the brightest to our district so that those young, bright minds coming out of school don't go off to other school districts. And as a way of saving some of these, or maybe all of them, I think the money I'm about to highlight here could save all of these positions, these 98 that are being furloughed, would be simply to take a look at 2 very lucrative contracts and decide to bid them out. You've heard me say this over and over again, and you've heard 2 auditor generals say it over and over again since 2012. If you reduce the transportation contracts from an average of what it currently is, something like 300% of the state allowance, down to 200% of the state allowance, giving those contractors twice the state allowance. If you were to do that, you would save enough money to save these teachers. So, you know, these teachers with families, with children in college, with young children just being born, with mortgages for their house, with car payments, etc. Maybe you could save their jobs. I think that would be a good place to look. And here's Article 15 from one of those two contracts, which states, the number of buses required by the district may be reduced or increased at the sole discretion of the district. I've read through this contract a couple of times. I've read through the other one a couple of times. There's nothing in there that says that they are the sole provider of transportation for the district. Abington is currently using 4 providers. Has anyone looked into doing that? Looking for other bids? Looking for other contractors who might be able to provide the services? Has anyone done that?
I'd like to address a couple of the things you said. Maybe this will help. First of all, you were talking about a number of teachers being furloughed. The number of teachers that the board has furloughed is 51. 28 of those are tenured, 23 are non-tenured. The way we're doing this is all of the non-tenured teachers have received letters. Some of the teachers who have received letters, whether tenured or non-tenured, may be called back. So 91 teachers will not be furloughed. 51 teachers is what the board voted on. So I want to just make that clear. I also want you to know that this board has been working on looking at the bus contracts and actually speaking to our 2 vendors. They've also have agreed in the Auditor General's letter to bid out the contracts moving forward, and have also asked our financial advisors, PFM, to take a look at our entire transportation program and make some recommendations as to maybe a different configuration where we would be able to reduce cost while they're continuing to negotiate with our vendors to get a reduced cost, and in between that time and the time they go out for bid. So, you know, you've come here ever since I've been here, and you've had a concern about this, and I will say that this board has been taking proactive moves to try to address that issue.
Thank you, Dr. Curie. You know, it's been a concern because of the amount. You know, it's millions and millions of dollars per year.
If I could just add, under Article 15, in fact, as you know, I'm sure, Kevin, in 2015, we did reduce the bus runs by 12 from, I think, 63 to 51. Forgive me, I might be off by a bus or 2, but we brought those number of runs down, and that did save the district a significant amount of money. One of the things that we're looking at with PFM is whether there's a way to look at the runs to go further with that. And the only other point I would make to you is this, that when we look at that report, and when it refers to those percentages, it refers to the state reimbursement formula. And you know, virtually no one is getting that, particularly not in an urban district. So when we looked at these numbers, we did compare ourselves to other urban districts, urban districts in the eastern half of the state, and I will say that our number is competitive. And I think you know, I've discussed that with some of the others. So comparing apples to apples, you know, although it is an expensive service, and there may be some other things we can do. Perhaps we can be more competitive. It looks like with the Auditor General, we're going to bid it going forward. I've always taken it seriously. That number has pretty much, I think, since 2012, been flat in terms of growth per bus. And actually with the cut runs, we've even saved money. I think only 1 year did it go above 294, and right now it's below that 294 figure. So,
I'm not, which 12 years was that you were
since
referring to?
2012.
Oh, since 2012.
Since 2012. You know, from 2006 to 2012, there was a great deal of growth, but since 2012, we've held that cost pretty much flat. Actually, when we cut the runs, we've actually saved money.
I beg to differ. I think I can show you from your own audits that the increase has been.
Those numbers are from PFM. They're not my numbers. So.
Right. Well, the numbers I see are from your own audits, from the audits from the school district themselves, done by Mr. Barbetti and company.
I'd be happy to sit down and go over them with you.
Yep.
Got it. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Case. Suzanne Fury.
Good evening to Dr. Kirian, to the board, to everyone present this evening. My name is Suzanne Fury. I am a first grade teacher at Neil Armstrong, and I am a member of the SFT. I just have really four things that I just wanted to briefly talk about. And I preface it with a question, and because what keeps going through my head is, how is this justified? And hopefully you can think about that as well. I know every day as a teacher, I go to school with the aim of helping my children, my little ones, 6 and 7 years old, learn to love learning, to love the subjects we teach, and so many other things. And yet, at the same time, there's a huge irony, because right now, they're getting a different message from the district and from the administration, that there's actually a devalue in literacy. So much so that we're cutting programs, we're cutting librarians. I personally cannot imagine, I'm hearing tonight, we're going to have libraries with no one in them. No adult, no librarian. That seems to be quite up in the air. And I ask myself, how is that justified? We're a school district. How do we justify having a library without a librarian? I can't imagine that. So how is that justified? That's the first thing I was thinking about. The second, how is this justified, is the teacher furloughs. They are not due to declining enrollments. They are not due to a lack of need or a lack of revenue. The cuts are because of fiscally irresponsible decisions that have been going on for years. And I was pleased tonight to hear that the board is trying to address some of that irresponsibility, and it seems like there are steps being taken to try to right some of those wrongs. But unfortunately, it is our students who are the sacrificial lambs here, and the teachers as well. And I know it's been said, but I just keep thinking, how is this justified? How is it justified to ask our students, our special needs students, as we've heard tonight, why are they responsible to have to deal with the cuts and the changes and the loss of their beloved teachers for something that they didn't do? They have no part of, and neither do the teachers. And I wonder, how is that justified? Third, our district is growing. Our student population is growing. Unfortunately, so is our learning support, our special education population. I don't know how we justify cutting 10 learning support teachers. We need 10 more, not 10 less, if anything. Again, I ask myself, how is that justified? And the fourth point I have is, I hope that you sincerely, I know there's nothing easy here, I know it, and I know that cuts have to be made. Please think about the long-term consequences. I keep thinking, what is going to attract? There's so many wonderful things happening in the city to help bring it back to the greatness that there once was. Schools are #1 on the list. That's why families move to a city. Please, help Scranton become, this school district become the reason that people stay and people want to stay. And if I could just say one more thing about the music program in the intermediate. It just does not make sense to me to have music in 6th grade and an interruption. I mean, I have a daughter who's a teenager now, but that intermediate time is so critical. You want these, if you lose them in 7th and 8th grade, you won't get them back. And music is so valuable. Please find a way to have that not interrupted and allow those kids to enjoy that music all 3 years. For many students, music isn't just a class they take once a week. For many of them, it's their life. They become musicians. I hope that you will not take that away from them. And I sincerely thank you for the opportunity to speak. And I leave you with the question that I have. To me, it's not justified. We need to do better for our students. We need to offer them everything we possibly can. And please do everything you can to have the teachers be the last to be cut. Please don't take the teachers away from their students. Thank you.
Thank you, Nadia, there you are.
Hello, I'm Nadia Huruma-Daffy, a senior at Scranton High School. 2 weeks ago, when the teachers got furloughed, I was there when my teacher, Miss Yerke, came back into the room with tears in her eyes. I just want to say nothing sadder than a group of teenagers all crying because they know their favorite teacher won't be there next year, and seeing a teacher cry because she will no longer be teaching the students she loves at the school she loves. This is the 4th year I've taken Ms. Yerke's class, and I could not imagine going through my high school career any other way. The teachers in the school district is losing one of the most dedicated teachers they have. Ms. Yerke has spent time after school tutoring students, not just at the high school level, but kids from the elementary and middle school levels too, to ensure that the strings program had a strong core. But I guess that doesn't matter since you're getting rid of music at the lower levels. She spends her lunches helping students with their rhythm and intonation. Ms. Yerke cares. She does more than just put on a concert. She pushes us to do well in school, and she takes pride when we do. Out of last year's graduating class, in the top 4 of them had taken Ms. Yerke's class, and that's not a coincidence. There are many studies linking brain activity to music. The changes you will make will surely kill off the orchestra program in the long run, and I can almost guarantee you're not going to like the results that come with that. Thank you.
Thank you, Nadia. Rebecca Lucas.
So I want to bring this to a little bit of a personal note right now. Ms. Yerke was my teacher for 2 of my 4 years of high school, and Diana Mari was my teacher for 2 of my years. She actually taught me how to play the violin. I went to Catholic school instead of public school for my middle school and elementary years of my life, and I absolutely hated it. I had wished I went to public school to get the music and be able to play the violin. My grandfather inspired me so much. When he was young, he got to play the violin, and he got to play on the radio all the time. And that made my life so happy because I wanted to be just like him, and I actually have this tattoo dedicated to him. And you're a doctor, right? So you know, and you should be so smart to be able to see that music is such an inspiration. It makes you so smart. It makes you able to do these things and be able to help your stress, be able to help your life, be able to help your mind. And if I didn't have music in my life, I honestly would not be in this world today. I would have killed myself. Ms. Yerke helped me to be able to figure out how to fill my void and help me to help my stress, help me figure out who I am, and help me get friends. And it wasn't just the music. It wasn't just helping me decrease my stress, decrease my anxiety. It was her as a person. In the mornings, when I would go into school, I would hate it. I hated school. School was awful. It was the most terrible thing of my life. I'm so glad I'm done. But imagine a kid who is in the same situation as me and doesn't have this opportunity in the morning when they don't want to go to their homeroom. They can't go to the strings room anymore because you're cutting that program. They can't go during lunch because they have a fear of everybody, like all these people, they have this fear of so many people and they don't want to do it. Ms. Yerke gave me that opportunity to get away from that. And I was able to go and practice with them and get away from all that. But she would, when I had these issues and I would cry, she would be there to talk to me. And it wasn't just her, it was Miss Amari too. And then I took art and I had Mr. Schulte and Mr. Ruan, and I ended up in Art Honor Society, and all these amazing things happened for me. And Nadia just talked about how Miss Amari helped and got these younger kids and helped them learn how to play the violin and the viola or whatever instrument they decided to play. That helped me figure out my career in helping these children. If I didn't know how to help children and be able to figure out how to interact with kids, I wouldn't be able to do the job that I'm in right now and have patience for people and talk to people. And I am so glad and thankful for her. And you are taking away this opportunity for other kids like me or anything. And I think that is absolutely sad. And you're a doctor. Think about that. That's awful. That is terrible. Don't do that. Don't do that to other kids. And people around here, this is such a cultured area. People are poor. People don't have that opportunity. People can't go out and get lessons. They can't pay for that. I couldn't pay for that. My mom is a teacher, and, well, she's an aide. She's an autistic aide in Neil Armstrong. She could have lost her job, and thank God she didn't right now. And I hope that she doesn't, and I hope you don't take that away from her. Thank you for not right now. She loves those kids. And I bet that every single teacher in this room, every kid in this room right now is thankful that they have the opportunity that they have. So please, just keep doing what you're doing and keep opportunities that you have and just make everything ready for every kid and just let them have what I had. It helped me so much. Just be aware of that. Thank you.
Thank you, Rebecca. Teddy Anderson?
Good evening. I came here tonight to speak about one topic in particular, and I'll get to that in a little bit. I'm a Scranton Athletic Director, mathematics teacher, proud member of Scranton Federation of Teachers, parent of 4 young students, actually not young anymore, going through the West Side, West Scranton school system, John Marshall, Isaac Tripp, West Intermediate and West High School, and they're getting a great education. I grew up on the other side of the river, Prescott School, East Intermediate, Central High School, Central, and now at Scranton High School. I think as AD, I see a lot. I deal with maintenance and Mr. Brazil. I dealt with Mr. Sunday, Mr. Laffey, as far as finances. I probably spend more time in my job than Mr. Bresser can attest to it. We probably spend more time in this school district than anybody else. And I'm kind of dismayed, and I heard the gentleman speak about the arts, and I could sit up here and cry about junior high sports, but there's a lot of waste in this school district. I could see it. Call me. I can see positions. I can see garbage trucks flying over. I wonder, why are we in the garbage business? I see positions, and I won't say maintenance, and I won't say clerical. I just see positions that are like, why? Why do we need those? Like, they're for nothing. I mean, if we took a face away from the position, is it easier to cut? I mean, the politics just drive me crazy. And I see it, and I'm speaking as a parent right now, that, you know, if my kids, and again, my youngest is 7th grade, so she's not going to feel the art cuts in the intermediate school, but that's just ludicrous. I mean, the fact that you would cut the arts before you cut sports, and I'm the athletic director saying that, it's just, I mean, it's shameful. I mean, maybe I'm just a Mr. Holland's Opus like kind of guy, but I just don't see it. I mean, you need to work harder. And I know Mr. Duffy is busting his ass out there. I know Mr. Casey, and I know a few of you personally, and I don't know others, so I don't want to leave names out, but I mean, you need to work harder. I mean, you can't. I mean, 6 or 7 years ago, when Governor Corbett was just cutting up the education budget, there was a school director up there, also Kathleen McGuigan. She said, well, we're going to have to make tough decisions, but the classroom is where we're going to make those decisions last. Those are where the cuts are going to be last. And I just feel like you guys aren't taking that advice. I mean, that's the most sound thing I've heard up there in the last 7 or 8 years, and that was 7 or 8 years ago. I mean, we're cutting things first where they should be cutting last. I mean, why are we looking at other areas? I mean, it just boggles my mind that I see things. I'm at the stadium a lot, I'm in the building a lot, I'm at sporting events, I'm out at, you know, again, both sides of the city because my kids are going through the west side system, and it's just, I just don't see it. Like, you know, Mrs. Dish, you've been in this district 35 years. When's the last time we had 3 assistant superintendents? I mean, and they're all great people and super smart, but I mean, when's the last time we had 3? I love all 3 of them, or, you know, but take the faces away, and you know, maybe that's where we start.
They were always there, Mr. Anderson, with different titles.
Well, I mean, we could argue about that too. And,
Ted,
you know,
they're
but,
not assistant superintendents, so
Well,
let's make that clear right from now. Okay?
let's say salary-wise, they fall into that category.
You'd like to say that.
Okay.
But I also was wondering,
I just
this discussion we were having about the sport programs earlier, you know, if you would be involved with us to help us determine, you know, the assets of the program and what sports might we recommend to cut on the high school levels, that'd be great.
I'd be happy to, but I mean, my first suggestion would be we not cut any. I mean, what are the alternatives? Can we get a sponsor for basketball? Can we get a sponsor for junior high sports? I bet we could. I mean, there's people up here, I don't want to say connected, but there's people there who have community relations that would be able to maybe find us a sponsor.
And
I mean,
that's why
some of those kids come to school to play basketball.
To work with us. I mean,
Right.
already you threw out some
Again,
really
you know,
good ideas.
you always know where to find me.
I know.
But again, I say junior high sports here with the arts, they have to be up here first. And again, to cut them in the classroom, somebody mentioned the West Grand marching band doing a great job. There won't be a marching band in 3 years on either side of the city. And there just won't be. I mean, and you guys know that. But I mean, so all that aside, I mean, Mr. K I'm probably his hero because I already bid out my transportation. I send my golf team and my wrestling team in vans at $125 a clip instead of $350 or $400. So I've been doing that for years. And you know, I asked permission first. I'm in this gig 7 years, and I was told that was okay for wrestling, so I started doing it for golf. I mean, because $250 for a van at Delaware Valley's Country Club, or $125 for $350 for a bus, $125 for a van. I could use that money for something else, and I have, you know, save it for the kids. So things like that. Just, I mean, if I could do that in my budget, there's got to be other stuff. I mean, and you know, call me. I see things, and maybe you'll say no, we can't do that. In my mind, like we could. I think there's plenty of things we could be doing. And again, cutting teachers should be last. I should be last. So that was first, and I don't want to go on a ramble, but the other thing was, there's an item on the agenda tonight about AAU basketball. I've been fostering this for the last 5 or 6 years, and it's come to my attention that if something's on the agenda, and I've tried to get it on an athletic council agenda and been denied. I've made an email the last couple of weeks and got no response. I spoke to a couple of school directors about it and told that we were going to discuss it.
You've talked to me personally.
I've emailed you.
Yes.
I've emailed
And
you.
you've talked to me.
No. About the AAU?
AAU.
No. No, we haven't. I just sent an email. I was waiting for a response, but I got nothing. Mr. Coyle called me and gave me a response, but we haven't talked.
And I've talked to the 2 people that you're referring to with the AAU basketball.
Okay.
I've already spoken to 2 of them.
Okay, so there's something on the agenda tonight that I've been trying to put together to keep everybody happy. And again, I'm going to say names: Backcourt Hoops and Keystone Karma.
That's right.
For the last 5 or 6 years, we've had a good relationship with both. Keystone Karma has used our gym for free during the week, no cost, and nothing, period. Backcourt Hoops has used our gym on Saturdays in the spring, 6 or 7 Saturdays, I'll say, for their tournaments. And in return, we've been using their courts all winter long for practices. We've had cheerleading trials over there. The Northeast backboard shattered, so I had Northeast practice there for 2 weeks straight. So we've had a good working relationship back and forth. And this agenda item here seems to shut out one entity in favor of the other. And I just need to make sure that's not going to happen, because our kids are getting something, and our kids are playing free AAU basketball. And again, I'm not going to preach to the choir, but our kids are needy and can't afford to pay the high costs of AU basketball. We've had 7 or 8 playing for free the last 5 or 6 years, for free, and it looks like that person's going to get shut out in favor of,
No.
I don't know why.
I received the request for what's on the agenda this evening
Okay.
from the school principal.
Okay.
And I'm waiting for the request for the other. Neither request will be denied. And I spoke to both gentlemen about that. And the minimal fee that would be charged to use the gym at West Scranton and at Scranton High. And I've also had conversations about the need that our district would have to actually use or exchange for the riverfront gym. And according to your principal, we don't really need that. It's a convenience for us, but we don't really need to have that. So this does not take away one program or the other. This one is just brought first.
Well, there's only one mentioned there, so I want.
Yes,
can we add to that in exchange for what we're already getting from backcourt hoops, they could have the Saturday preference?
Well, this one is not back.
Right. That's.
Yeah. So when that comes forward, then we can maybe make the adjustment on that one.
Well, can we table this
for
one tonight?
Saturdays.
Why can't we table this tonight and get both parties together and have one?
I've actually worked with both parties, and everyone seems
But there's only one
to
party.
be
There's only one.
satisfied.
But there's only one party on there, though. There's nothing for the other guy.
That, Ted.
So
Yeah.
I'm trying to get both to keep both happy for our kids.
I understand, and I've spoken directly with the other gentleman you're referring to.
But there's nothing on there for him, though.
That's because I did not receive the request for him to be on this agenda.
Okay, so why don't we table this for tonight? Because it just looks
I
like.
don't think it's necessary, because we will be bringing the other one to the board for their consideration and approval, as we are this one. And there's nothing that's going to change.
Since we're dealing with one gym and 2 different entities, why don't we get them together at once?
We're dealing with 2 gyms. We're dealing with the West Scranton High School gym, and we're dealing with the Scranton High School gym.
Well, the Scranton High School gym is what they both want. I mean,
And
West Scranton is good
I spoke to the other gentleman about the use of the West Side High School gym.
And he will in the spring.
He was fine with that.
But I'm trying to schedule my gym. And for the last 5 or 6 years, we've had both parties happy. Our kids have benefited, and we've had no problems. And now all of a sudden, one is pushing the other out the door, and
That's
I don't know
not
why.
the case, Ted.
Well, there's only one on the agenda tonight. And
I understand that, Ted, and I told you we would be bringing the other one to
you spoke to the other gentleman. Why isn't he on the agenda?
I spoke to both gentlemen.
But there's only one on the agenda.
That's right, Ted, because this was the first request that I received. I have the second request now on my desk, and that is why I called the second gentleman. Ted,
If we have the second request.
this is not the time to debate this.
I don't want to debate this, but I don't want to promise, I don't want to shut out one person.
You're not shutting out one person. The one person has the use of the West Side High School gym for practices during the week. You just asked if we could amend that so that they would have Saturdays at your school. I said that would be
okay.
A definite okay. The other.
So we're gonna add that tonight?
No, Ted, I'm not. It's not. We're not going to add it to the agenda. But I want you to rest assured, neither group is being left out.
Well, I'll just leave it at that. It would be my hope that the board put our best interest of our kids first and vote this down tonight and get both parties together and have one resolution.
Why would we vote something down that's good for the kids, Ted?
How is it good for our kids?
Well, we're scheduling one group.
No, but
we're approving
how is that one group?
tonight.
How is that one group using our gym good for our kids?
Ted, I think you have a personal. I just
No,
don't.
I don't.
No,
I don't.
I think you have
I've sent
a
team upon
personal
team.
agenda
No.
here
Honestly, I
about
don't.
this other entity, and I'd rather not debate
Honestly,
it
I
here,
don't.
but talk to you offline.
I said teams, cheerleaders, and everybody
I've
across the
talked to
street,
both- I've
across the
talked to
street to
both
practice,
gentlemen,
and now you're taking that
they
away.
both seem to be satisfied with the arrangement.
Again,
So-
it
so
would be
I
my
don't know
hope
where
that we
this
vote
is
this down
coming
tonight, because I don't think it's in the best interest of our kids and for both parties. I don't think it's worded that way. Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Anderson. That ends our public comment for this evening. Do I have a motion to approve the meeting minutes of 11/13/17, 11/20/17, 12/4/17, 12/7/17, and 12/18/17? Do I have a second?
Second.
On the question? Roll call?
Mr. Casey?
Yes.
Mrs. Cognetti?
Yes.
Mr. Duffy?
Yes.
Ms. Gilmartin? Yes. Mr. Lesh?
Yes.
Mr. McAndrew?
Yes.
Mrs. Oleski?
Yes.
Mr. Schuster?
Yes.
Mrs. Dixon?
Yes.
9 affirmative.
Athletics and Stadium Director Casey?
Members of the Board of School Directors of the City of Scranton, it is the recommendation of the Superintendent and the Athletics and Stadium Committee that the following resolution be approved. Whereas the local girls' spring and summer AAU basketball team, Keystone Karma, has requested the use of Scranton High School's gymnasium for their practices for the 2018 spring and summer season. And whereas, so that no scheduling conflicts occur, Keystone Karma is to provide a practice schedule to the administration of Scranton High School. And whereas, Keystone Karma is to provide proof of insurance for liability purposes. And whereas, Keystone Karma may be subject to a rental fee from the Scranton School District for the use of the gymnasium at Scranton High School. And now therefore be it resolved, Keystone Karma is allowed to use the Scranton High School Gymnasium for practices during the 2018 spring and summer season. Respectfully submitted.
Second.
On the question?
Yes, on the question, Mr. Anderson brought up that the other individual team in question needs this for Saturdays. Is that correct?
That was the request.
And it's not a 2-hour thing, correct? It's an all day. So,
Mr. Casey, that's incorrect. He gave me a schedule that consisted of practices for 2 months and tournaments on a weekend.
okay.
And I would be more than happy to entertain it. Mr. Coyle is not interested in having that party at his school, so we're trying to set him up here, and we're trying to get that on the next month's board agenda for that to get approved for here.
Okay. And this isn't that I don't want one or the other. I'm going to make a motion to table until we can get both parties.
Roll call?
Mrs. Cognetti?
Yes.
Mr. Duffy?
Yes.
Ms. Gilmartin?
Yes.
Mr. Lesh?
Yes.
Mr. McAndrew?
Yes.
Mrs. Oleski?
Yes.
Mr. Schuster?
This is the motion to table, correct? Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Casey?
Yes.
Mrs. Dixon?
Yes.
9 affirmative.
Budget and Finance Director Cognetti?
It is the recommendation of the superintendent and the Budget and Finance Committee that the following resolution be considered. The list of bill payments in accordance with the bill payment approval policy be approved as per the attached. I move that the orders be drawn upon the Treasury as follows. February 5th, 2018, $913,996.
Second.
On the question? Roll call?
Mr. Duffy?
Yes.
Ms. Gilmartin?
Yes.
Mr. Lesh?
Yes.
Mr. McAndrew?
Yes.
Mrs. Oleski?
Yes.
Mr. Schuster?
I will be abstaining from this vote.
Mr. Casey?
Yes.
Mrs. Cognetti?
Yes.
Mrs. Dixon?
Yes.
8 affirmative, 1 abstention. Motion passes.
It is the recommendation of the superintendent and the Budget and Finance Committee that the following resolution be considered. The exception bill list as per the bill payment approval policy for the period ended February 5th, 2018 be approved as per the attached.
Second.
On the question? Roll call?
Ms. Gilmartin?
Mr. Lesh?
Yes.
Mr. McAndrew?
Yes.
Mrs. Oleski?
Yes.
Mr. Schuster?
Yes.
Mr. Casey?
Yes.
Mrs. Cognetti?
Yes.
Mr. Duffy?
Yes.
Mrs. Dixon?
Yes.
9 affirmative.
Budget and Finance Committee and the Superintendent of Schools presents the following resolution for your consideration. Be it resolved that the delinquent tax report for the month of December 2017 be accepted. A copy of the monthly detail is available for review in the business office.
Second.
On the question? Roll call?
Mr. Lesh?
Yes.
Mr. McAndrew?
Yes.
Mrs. Oleski?
Yes.
Mr. Schuster?
Yes.
Mr. Casey?
Yes.
Mrs. Cognetti?
Yes.
Mr. Duffy?
Yes.
Ms. Gilmore? Yes. Mrs. Dixon?
Yes.
9 affirmative.
It is the recommendation of the Superintendent and the Budget and Finance Committee that the following resolution is approved. Be it resolved that the proposed general operating budget of the Northeastern Educational Intermediate Union, NEIU 19, for the 2018-2019 school years be approved.
Second.
On the question? I have a question. So, we've seen in the paper lately that the CTC executive director there was a salary dispute. Is there anything in this or through the not negotiations, but the board meetings at the NEIU where the executive director is asking for an excessive salary or something? I know Ms. Boland brought that up, but is that something we should be aware of?
His salary for himself?
Yes.
There hasn't been any discussions recently about that. He was recently given we were talking about an extension when his contract was up, but nothing has been formalized yet.
Roll call?
Mr. McAndrew?
Yes.
Mrs. Oleski? Mrs. Oleski?
I'm sorry, yes. I'm sorry, I had it on mute.
Okay. Mr. Schuster?
Yes.
Mr. Casey?
Yes.
Mrs. Cognetti?
Yes.
Mr. Duffy?
Yes.
Ms. Gilmore?
Yes.
Mr. Lesh?
Yes.
Mrs. Dixon?
Yes.
9 affirmative.
It is the recommendation of the Superintendent and the Budget and Finance Committee that the following resolution be approved. Whereas the Pennsylvania Auditor General's performance audit report for fiscal years ending June 30, 2016, 2015, 2014, and 2013, the Scranton School District received 9 findings and will submit a corrective action plan in response to the findings. Now, therefore, be it resolved, the corrective action response to the Auditor General's findings be approved. And for discussion, we have one amendment, Dr. Carrion, to this letter. It would be on page 5, finding number 9. This first sentence should read, instead of, as it currently is, the Board of Directors has asked the district to solicit proposals to employ a third-party auditor to perform an audit of the IT department and its budget. Please amend that to, the Board of Directors has asked the district to have our technical advisor, PFM, review our inventory controls and optimize the recommendations of the Auditor General. If further study is needed, the Board of Directors will follow PFM's recommendations on how to proceed. I'll get you that language.
Second.
On the question?
On the question, I do think that the original language is appropriate. I do think that the Auditor General has given strong language. I think the taxpayer would like to see strong language, and I think the original document, as it is here, is strong language that we need to look into, and I would like the board to keep the original language in here. We've had several presentations from the NEIU to take a look at auditing the special ed department, and I think with this one right here, the special ed department was not put in the Auditor General's report, however, the IT department was, and I would like this language to continue.
On the question, I will be abstaining from the vote, seeing that it conflicts with my employment status.
So I would like to add a friendly amendment that the original language stays. Mr. Menor?
We could, vote on the friendly amendment first. Yes, meaning it stays the same, no meaning it doesn't.
So the friendly amendment would be that it stays exactly as it is.
Original language.
The original one, right?
Yes.
Any other questions? Roll call?
Are we voting on the original then?
Yes, the original that is attached to this resolution.
The amendment.
Are we voting on the original or the amended?
Could we explain to Carol, it's the one with the original language in it.
Okay, am I first?
Now, if we would like to look into, if PFM cannot do this, the board will look into a third-party auditor. I would be in favor of that.
So,
I'm also in favor of that.
so would you like it to read something along the, like, the board of directors has asked the district to have our technical advisor PFM review inventory controls, optimize recommendations of the auditor general. If further study is needed, the board of directors will employ a third-party auditor.
Put out a proposal for a third-party.
Well, solicit proposals.
I would just like to ask.
I don't think, I mean, you have one amendment on the floor, right? I mean, there's one amendment on the floor, I think it should be voted on, and then if that passes, then the original language stays. If the vote is no, then you'd vote on the language that was proposed.
Exactly.
So we're voting on the one with the changed language?
Correct.
With PFM?
First,
No, you're voting on the original, the amendment.
PFM.
The amendment that Mr. Schuster proposed.
I just want to make sure we're all clear.
Okay, and a yes vote would be in favor of the amendment, a no vote would be not in favor of the amendment.
So a yes vote would be in favor of the original language.
Correct.
And if I could just add on the question, that last paragraph that we're speaking about was added by the board specifically. That wasn't part of the original 9 items. That was given by the Auditor General. That was strictly by the board. So my opinion on this one is I'd like to follow PFM directly to a T. If they can't do it, then I would be definitely in favor of exploring further options if they continue to see a shortcoming. But I'd like to stay right in line with PFM on that one. That's just my thought. Thank you.
So we're voting on the internal,
The first one first.
which is the audit.
The amendment on the original language.
The original language, the board of directors has asked the district to solicit proposals to employ a third-party auditor to perform an audit of the IT department and its budget.
Okay, any more questions?
I'd just like to offer something. I have just a personal feeling, but I feel this is a very political move. I believe that this is more for show than anything. The Auditor General has done his audit. He's passed on his recommendations. I think it's a total waste of taxpayer money, what we've been talking about here tonight. I don't see any reason for it, other than the fact that we've talked about, PFM coming in here, assisting us with our business department, assisting us with our special education department, also assisting us with, discussed tonight, with our transportation. Now, PFM is so highly regarded with the state, and quite frankly with the administration right now. And originally, there was an original recommendation by the superintendent, and I'd like to stay with that recommendation from the superintendent, but that's been changed. So again, I don't want to, spend money twice or thrice, but I believe PFM, if they're valued enough to help us in other departments, I believe they can do the same for the IT department. And, let them do their job. Let them educate the IT department in the way they need to do their inventory, with their controls better. That's all I have to say on that.
And I would have to agree if, I think the way it's worded, if it could be worded as for PFM to look into it first, and they cannot do it, we'll look into third-party audit.
Doesn't it didn't say we'd follow the recommendations?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it says that.
It says
says
we
that.
follow the recommendations.
I think it
Would you like me to
say
change,
that.
Mr. Moore, would you like me to change my friendly amendment to, we will reach out to PFM to look into the IT department, and if they're unable to do it, we will look into proposals for a third-party auditor.
So Tom, this is.
I think
this-
it kind of says that, but
It
So
does.
it would-
It does say,
It would add one phrase, so it would say, have our technical advisor PFM review our inventory controls and optimize the recommendations of the Auditor General. If further study is needed, the Board of Directors will follow PFM's recommendations on how to proceed, which may include solicitation of a third-party auditor.
Yes, I would be in agreement with this.
So that would be PFM first. Third-party auditor solicitations, we have no idea how much that would cost. It could be $1,000, it could be $100,000, $100,000, we wouldn't do it, obviously. Okay, so,
well, you
That's
know,
not the language.
we had people talking about paying for additional lawyers. Now we're paying for additional auditors.
Well,
Okay,
not yet.
You know, I understand where you're all coming from, but, you know, as far as I'm concerned, I believe it's a total waste, especially if it could run into being $100,000. I know what you're saying, Paige, you know, but you said it could run that. Okay?
we have no idea because there'd be a solicitation for a third-party audit.
You know what, we got lawyers out there, we're paying them $150 and higher an hour. So, you know, auditors don't come cheap either. I'm just saying that, you know, we're trying to save money on one end and throwing it out a window on the other. I mean, I don't know.
I think the Auditor General is
I think-
hinting that there might be a lot of money being wasted in our IT department that could already be happening, so let's agree.
I'm sorry.
I don't think the Auditor General would be putting
No.
this in the report if that wasn't
Well,
possible.
I'm sorry. You know what? I've been here a long time, and I think the Auditor General is wrong. Okay, he's wrong.
Okay, let me reread the sentence and then I'll reread the motion. Finding number 9, the Board of Directors has asked the district to have our technical advisor, PFM, review our inventory controls and optimize the recommendations of the Auditor General. If further study is needed, the Board of Directors will follow PFM's recommendation on how to proceed, which may include solicitation of a third-party auditor.
I disagree with that. I disagree with that last part. Totally.
Roll call?
wait,
No,
second.
we need a second.
Is this, I'm sorry,
Okay,
is
this
this
is-
a second on the amendment?
This is on what I just read, to amend that sentence to what I just read.
Director Oleski, did you hear all that?
Yeah, it's hard hearing, I did hear Paige, so this is now on the amended version, correct?
Correct.
Yes.
With including the statement which Paige just read.
Did you hear the statement Paige just read?
No, Paige read, yes, I did.
Okay. We have a second? We did, right?
Yes, I second.
Okay. Roll call?
Mrs. Oleski?
Yes.
Mr. Schuster?
Yes.
Mr. Casey?
Abstain.
Mrs. Cognetti?
Yes.
Mr. Duffy?
Yes.
Ms. Gilmartin?
Yes.
Mr. Lesh?
No.
Mr. McAndrew?
Yes.
Mrs. Dixon?
Yes.
7 affirmative, 1 abstention, 1 negative, motion passes.
It is the recommendation of the superintendent and the Budget and Finance Committee that the following is approved. Whereas Act 32, 7B0B, or 505B, sorry Tom, now I know why I'm the chair this year. We're tired of reading all these. Excuse me. Whereas Act 32, 7505B requires bodies of school districts, townships, boroughs, and cities to appoint voting delegates and 1 or more alternate delegates to serve as their tax collection committee representatives, and whereas the school board wishes to appoint Pat Laffey as the primary delegate, whereas the school board hereby appoints Bill Gaynard as the first alternate delegate, and whereas the Scranton School Board wishes to appoint Tom Schuster as the second alternate delegate. Therefore, it be resolved that the Scranton School Board hereby appoints Pat Laffey as primary, Bill Gaynard as first alternate, and Tom Schuster as second alternate to the TCC, and they are hereby authorized to vote on behalf of the Scranton School District.
Second.
On the question?
On the question, in the past, a board member has always been the primary delegate on this committee, correct?
No, last year, Mr. Sunday was the primary.
Actually, last year I was the primary. Mr. Sunday was second and Mr. Laffey was third.
Honestly, Mr. Laffey and I had looked that over. Mr. Laffey, do you recall? I may be incorrect.
In prior years, I don't know exactly who the primary delegate was, but Mr. Schuster is correct. Last year, the primary delegate was a member of the board. I was first amendment, first alternate, and Greg Sunday was second.
All right. Is there any opposition to having two board members on this committee, Mr. Laffey?
Not on my part.
I would like to suggest that the board member remains primary delegate to this, keeping Matt Laffey on there and also appointing another board member to the committee.
I have no problem with that. I'd like to make a motion to table until we can get this in order so there's no confusion on this vote. Do I have a second?
Second.
Roll call.
Mr. Schuster?
Yes.
Mr. Casey?
Yes.
Mrs. Cognetti?
Yes.
Mr. Duffy?
Yes.
Ms. Gilmartin? Yes. Mr. Lesh?
No.
Mr. McAndrew?
Yes.
Mrs. Oleski?
Yes.
Mrs. Dixon?
Yes.
8 affirmative, 1 negative, motion passes.
The Superintendent of Schools and the Budget and Finance Committee present the following resolution for your consideration. Be it resolved that the audit engagement letter for the 2018, 2019, and 2020 calendar years with Michael A. Barbetti, LLC, Certified Public Accountants, be approved as per the attached engagement letter.
Second.
On the question?
I will be recusing myself from this vote as I am involved in several organizations with which Mr. Barbetti and his wife are also affiliated.
All right. Also on the question, I spoke with Mr. Laffey earlier at the Budget and Finance Committee meeting. This contract ends somewhere, give or take, September 2018. This proposal here is an extension of this contract, is that correct?
Yes, the current agreement includes that you would audit the 2017 calendar year, which would typically conclude around September of the following year, 18. So this would be an extension of the next 3 audit years.
All right. Would this be a good idea to put out for bid since we're moving forward? We're going to put everything else together.
That's up to the board's professional service. They have a long history here in the school district. They're very familiar with it, and they provide other services in this agreement other than just the financial statement preparation. As I noted, I think at other conferences or other committee meetings that they also assist with our AFR as well.
Would it be a good idea to table this until we get put up for bid?
I'd like to make the motion to table.
Second.
Roll call.
Mr. Casey?
Yes.
Mrs. Cognetti?
Yes.
Mr. Duffy?
Yes.
Ms. Gilmartin? Mr. Lesh?
Yes.
Mr. McAndrew?
Yes.
Mrs. Oleski?
Yes.
Mr. Schuster?
Yes.
Mrs. Dixon?
Yes.
8 affirmative, 1 abstention. Motion passes.
The Superintendent and the Budget and Finance Committee present the following resolution for your consideration. Be it resolved that the Treasurer's Report for the period ending November 17th be accepted as follows. Opening balance. Do I need to read all of these very specifically? Every single number? How does this work? Excuse me. Okay. As per attached.
Second.
Thank you.
On the question? Roll call.
Mrs. Cognetti?
Yes.
Mr. Duffy?
Yes.
Ms. Gilmartin? Yes. Mr. Lesh?
Yes.
Mr. McAndrew?
Yes.
Mrs. Oleski?
Yes.
Mr. Schuster?
Yes.
Mr. Casey?
Yes.
Mrs. Dixon?
Yes.
9 affirmative.
Superintendent and the Budget and Finance Committee present the following resolution for your consideration. Be it resolved that the Treasurer's Report for the period ending December 2017 be accepted as follows.
Second.
On the question? Roll call.
Mr. Duffy?
Yes.
Ms. Gilmartin? Yes. Mr. Lesh?
Yes.
Mr. McAndrew?
Yes.
Mrs. Oleski?
Yes.
Mr. Schuster?
Yes.
Mr. Casey?
Yes.
Mrs. Cognetti?
Yes.
Mrs. Dixon?
Yes.
9 affirmative.
Thank you, Director Cognetti. We have technology. Director Oleski, I'm going to ask Mr. Director Lesh to read this for us. Is that okay?
I'd appreciate that, thank you.
Thank you. Members of the Board of School Directors of the City of Scranton, it is the recommendation of the Superintendent and the Education Committee that the following resolution be approved. Whereas the Scranton School District always strives to ensure that its students and staff have necessary network capacity to learn without interruption. Whereas the cost of commodity internet has decreased dramatically over the years, while the demand for capacity has grown just as dramatically. And whereas the Scranton School District desires a network infrastructure that has built its capacity to grow to meet the demands of a bandwidth-hungry future. Now, therefore, be resolved that the Scranton School Board approve a 5-year lease agreement with Zillow Business for a 10 gigabit internal network as per the attached contract. I so move.
Second.
On the question? Roll call?
Ms. Gilmartin? Yes. Mr. Lesh?
Yes.
Mr. McAndrew?
Yes.
Mrs. Oleski?
Yes.
Mr. Schuster?
Yes.
Mr. Casey?
Yes.
Mrs. Cognetti?
Yes.
Mr. Duffy?
Yes.
Mrs. Dixon?
Yes.
9 affirmative.
Education, Director Cognetti.
It is the recommendation of the Superintendent and the Education Committee that the following resolution be approved. Whereas a request for approval has been submitted to the Board of School Directors for the following out-of-state field trips. West Scranton High Ski Club, February 9th to February 11th in Killington Ski Resort in Vermont. West Scranton High School Spanish Students Spanish Club, March 16th, Camden Aquarium, New Jersey. And the following are all for the Scranton High School Choir. Sturbridge, Massachusetts, Midlothian, Virginia, Solon, Ohio, Powhatan, Virginia. I apologize if I mispronounced that, anyone from Virginia. Therefore, be it resolved, the Scranton School Board hereby approves the field trips per the requests previously provided for your review.
Second.
On the question?
Yes, I'd like to know, there was a question raised at public comment about an amount of $30,000 being in our budget for, is this what we're,
What we had a budget line in our budget that contained $27,000 for field trips, and we have removed that line item. I believe Ms. Boland had commented about schools and groups doing fundraisers to pay for their own field trips, and she is correct. And so these field trips are being paid for by the schools and organizations' own budgets, and the $27,000 that was removed for field trips from our budget is not being used. So that's why we removed it from the budget.
Okay. In the past, what was it used for?
I believe it just carried over.
Just carried over?
Yeah.
I would like to commend all the teachers that raised the money for these trips. Very nice work.
Anybody else? Roll call?
Mr. Lesh?
yes.
Mr. McAndrew?
Yes.
Mrs. Oleski?
Yes.
Mr. Schuster?
Yes.
Mr. Casey?
Yes.
Mrs. Cognetti?
Yes.
Mr. Duffy?
Yes.
Ms. Gilmartin?
Yes.
Mrs. Dixon?
Yes.
9 affirmative.
It is the recommendation of the Superintendent and the Education Committee that the following resolution be approved. Whereas due to inclement weather, the Scranton School District was closed on January 5th and 17th of 2018. Whereas the state mandates students receive 180 instructional days in the school year. Therefore, it be resolved, the Scranton School Board of Directors approves the following calendar changes. Thursday, March 29th, 2018, all students and employees will report to school work. Tuesday, April 3rd, 2018, all students and employees will report to school work.
Second.
On the question? Roll call?
Mr. McAndrew?
Yes.
Mrs. Oleski?
Yes.
Mr. Schuster?
Yes.
Mr. Casey?
Yes.
Mrs. Cognetti?
Yes.
Mr. Duffy?
Yes.
Ms. Gilmartin?
Yes.
Mr. Lush?
Yes.
Mrs. Dixon?
Yes.
9 affirmative.
The superintendent and the education committee request the board approval of staff attendance to conferences and meetings for professional development relevant to their specific duties and responsibilities as per the attached. Board approval is contingent upon the required approval of all supervisors, principals, or administration.
Second.
On the question?
On the question, when teachers go out to these presentations to gain knowledge, do they bring them back to their co-workers to transfer this knowledge?
A few of these on here are required trainings by the state, and we're trying to get as many of our people to go to those trainings. To answer your questions, when we have senior staff or special education staff go out, we do bring back to the others during our staff development days what they have gained.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Roll call.
Mrs. Oleski? Mrs.
Yes. Sorry.
That's okay. Mr. Schuster?
Yes.
Mr. Casey?
Yes.
Mrs. Cognetti?
Yes.
Mr. Duffy?
Yes.
Ms. Gilmartin?
Yes.
Mr. Lush?
Yes.
Mr. McAndrew?
Yes.
Mrs. Dixon?
Yes.
9 affirmative.
It is the recommendation of the superintendent and the Board of Education that Scranton High School and West High School receive endorsement to apply for a $25,000 grant from the Scranton Area Foundation to help offset the cost of advanced placement examinations for students. Whereas the Scranton School District students are encouraged to participate in high-level courses created by the College Board, which offers college-level curricula and examinations to high school students. Whereas colleges and universities may grant placement and course credits to students who obtain high scores on the examinations. Whereas students participating in advanced placement courses have the opportunity to take these examinations. Now therefore be it resolved approval to submit a joint grant request from Scranton High School and West Scranton High School to the Scranton Area Community Foundation to offset the cost of exams be approved as per the attached.
Second.
On the question?
I'm recusing myself from this vote as well, as I am a trustee of the foundation to which the application is being submitted.
I'm missing the letter from West Scranton High School, but as long as the proposal includes, the resolution includes both, we're okay?
Yes, Mr. Coyle, who submitted the letter, spoke to the person at the foundation who said to make sure on the resolution it lists both schools. The letter had already gone through,
Okay.
so there will be an amendment.
But that will go for both schools?
Yes.
Okay. Anyone else? Roll call?
Mr. Schuster?
Yes.
Mr. Casey?
Yes.
Mrs. Cognetti?
Yes.
Mr. Duffy?
Yes.
Ms. Gilmartin?
Abstain.
Mr. Lush?
Yes.
Mr. McAndrew?
Yes.
Mrs. Oleski?
Yes.
Mrs. Dixon?
Yes.
8 affirmative, 1 abstention, motion passes.
Food Services Director McAndrew?
Yes, it is a recommendation of the superintendent and the Food Services Committee that the following resolution be approved. Whereas Here for a Reason organization is dedicated to bringing dignity and hope to people in northeastern Pennsylvania by finding effective and creative solutions to the foundational problems. Now therefore be it resolved that the Scranton School Board approves Here for a Reason organization to work with the Scranton School District to provide meals for children who are at risk of food insecurity.
On the question?
Yeah, Mark, could you elaborate on this program?
Yes, I'd love to. So on the question, this organization reached out to me. They're a nonprofit organization that has prepared 10,000 ready-to-eat meals that they want to provide to us and distribute throughout the district based on need. I think it's a wonderful organization. I'm excited, I'm very proud of them, and it's a breath of fresh air to have an organization or entity approach us and give us 10,000 meals and not ask for a dime in return. So I'm very happy to be a part of this.
You're saying ready-to-eat meals.
They're a septically packaged, dried product. It's a bean and rice product that could just be rethermalized with water. Students, they can be stored anywhere, they can be taken home. They're a great complex protein. It's just a great meal. Well, it's a supplement.
you know, I've never heard of a program like this, and I'm sure, but you know what? I'd love for them to come in and give us a presentation.
Well, they did. At our last work session, they came in and spoke to us.
Oh. And where are they from?
Locally in Scranton.
Locally in Scranton. And they're able to provide us with 10,000 radio?
They actually already prepared them, and they did them, and they prepared them in Scranton High.
They prepared these meals in our district?
They packaged them at the school, yes.
Roll call.
Mr. Casey?
Well, I'd like to just stay on the question. I was there for the presentation, Bob, and it's a great program. It's a great way that the community is helping community, and I'd be honored to be voting yes for this evening.
Thank you.
I'm amazed at 10,000 meals being prepared in our district. Yeah. And packaged.
Okay, roll call.
Mr. Casey?
Yes.
Mrs. Cognetti?
Yes.
Mr. Duffy?
Yes.
Ms. Gilmartin? Yes. Mr. Lesh?
Yes.
Mr. McAndrew?
Yes.
Mrs. Oleski?
Yes.
Mr. Schuster?
Yes.
Mrs. Dixon?
Yes.
9 affirmative.
Okay, intergovernmental, Director Duffy.
Yes, Madam President. Just one thing, G1. To the members of the Board of School Directors of the City of Scranton, it is the recommendation of the Superintendent and Intergovernmental Committee that the following is approved. Be it resolved, the Scranton School Board of Directors hereby designates Robert Casey as the representative to the NEIU number 19, beginning July 1st, 2018 through June 30th, 2021. Respectfully submitted.
Second.
On the question? Roll call.
Mrs. Cognetti?
Yes.
Mr. Duffy?
Yes.
Ms. Gilmartin? Yes. Mr. Lesh?
Yes.
Mr. McAndrew?
Yes.
Mrs. Oleski?
Yes.
Mr. Schuster?
Yes.
Mr. Casey?
Yes.
Mrs. Dixon?
Yes.
9 affirmative.
I just want to say thank you to the fellow board members.
Thank you.
Thank you. Labor Relations, Director Schuster.
To the members of the Board of School Directors of the City of Scranton, it is the recommendation of the Superintendent and the Labor Relations Committee that the following is approved. Whereas the 32 BJ Local 1201 filed a grievance in the matter of JC, and whereas the grievance was heard by the Labor Relations Committee, and both sides had the opportunity to present evidence to make arguments on the issues presented, and therefore after deliberating on the said grievance, it is hereby denied. Respectfully submitted.
On the question? Oh, I'm sorry. On the question? Roll call.
Mr. Duffy?
Yes.
Ms. Gilmartin? Yes. Mr. Lesh?
Yes.
Mr. McAndrew?
No.
Mrs. Oleski?
Yes.
Mr. Schuster?
No.
Mr. Casey?
Yes.
Mrs. Cognetti?
Yes.
Mrs. Dixon?
Yes.
7 affirmative, 2 negative, motion passes.
To the members of the Board of the School Directors of the City of Scranton, it is a recommendation of the Superintendent and Labor Relations Committee that the following resolution be approved. Whereas John Audi Esquire from the law firm of Sweet, Stevens, Katz & Williams be appointed Special Labor Relations Counsel to assist in suspension of employees. This appointment is retroactively to January 2nd, 2018. Fees are as per attached in the fee schedule. Now therefore be it resolved that the Scranton School Board hereby approves this resolution. Respectfully submitted.
Second.
On the question?
I'd like to address what Ms. Bowen, Ms. Mead, and Ms. Telesco brought up, that Mr. Audi and Sweet Stevens Katz, like all of our legal representation, are appointments that are at will. This is a special circumstance, and as soon as the special circumstance is over, we will be bidding out any future services for Labor Relations Council, like per our board proposal that will bid out everything over $10,000.
So, Director Cognetti, the fee is $200 an hour. So we have approximately 100 teachers being furloughed. So after 50 hours, he's going to make over $10,000, and there's no reason to bid it out. That's not logical.
I'm not sure that he will attend every hearing. That's not something, Mr. Menor and Mr. Audi will figure that out. We've got, as you said, a lot of hearings. I'm not sure what the hours will look like. This is a special circumstance. We need a special counsel for this, and this is the process that we've had to use with this very, very special circumstance on a tight timeline. Moving forward with this individual and all legal counsel, we will be bidding things out.
On the question, I'd like to table this matter.
Second. Roll call.
Ms. Gilmartin? No. Mr. Lesh?
Yes.
Mr. McAndrew?
No.
Mrs. Oleski?
Director Oleski?
I'm sorry, no.
Mr. Schuster?
No.
Mr. Casey?
No.
Mrs. Cognetti?
No.
Mr. Duffy?
No.
Mrs. Dixon?
No.
8 negative, 1 affirmative, motion fails.
Policy, Director Gilmartin. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. So we go back now, we have to read this again?
No.
We're just on the questions.
On the question? So we're roll call?
Respond to question? Okay, I would just like to know how the board can move ahead and not bid this out. I mean, this could possibly exceed the $10,000 threshold. There is no scope of the work, there's no scope of the hours, all right? It's all on hearsay.
It's a professional service.
Mr. Lesh. I understand that, but it's a professional service that could go past the $10,000 threshold.
But under the state code, professional services don't have to be bid for precisely the reason. If you need a specialized service like this, you can find that person.
So anybody that sits on this board can bring anybody in under their personal recommendation?
Well, it has to be approved. That's what's being done now.
Well, but he's already done work. He's already been here.
Well, that happens, Bob, occasionally. Many times teachers get hired, and then they get hired retroactive to the date of their hiring because of the way the board meetings go.
All right. Okay. I can see the double standard. No problem.
Roll call?
Mr. Lesh?
No.
Mr. McAndrew?
Yes.
Mrs. Oleski?
Yes.
Mr. Schuster?
Yes.
Mr. Casey?
Yes.
Mrs. Cognetti?
Yes.
Mr. Duffy?
Yes.
Ms. Gilmartin?
Yes.
Mrs. Dixon?
Yes.
8 affirmative, 1 negative, motion passes.
All right, policy? Director Gilmartin.
Thank you. It is the recommendation of the superintendent and the policy committee that the following resolution be approved. Whereas the following policies 302 and 808 have been revised by the Pennsylvania School Board Association, PSBA, and whereas the following policy 831 has been implemented by the Scranton School District Policy Committee, and whereas the following policy 916 has been revised by the recommendation of the Pennsylvania Department of Health. And now, therefore, be it resolved that the Scranton School Board hereby approves policy numbers 302 and 808, recommended by the Pennsylvania School Boards Association, PSBA, 831, recommended by the Scranton School District Policy Committee, and 916, recommendation of the Pennsylvania Department of Health. Respectfully submitted.
On the question?
On the question, policy 831 regarding change orders, was that submitted to the PSBA?
Yes, you consulted with them, correct?
Yes. What was their response to that?
831 was developed by our policy committee. It was a policy that I researched and got similar policy, change order policies throughout the state. And the committee got together and decided that they liked that policy that's specifically in, and we got some language added from school board members to that policy. For change order policy to be submitted and implemented. We haven't had one. That's That's a new one.
All right. Do we know what the threshold is for the change orders? Do you know that offhand? I don't have the resolution.
It's $4,000.
Is that the original? Ms. Gilmore?
$5,000. The superintendent is authorized to approve and execute any project change order recommended by the district appointed architect, so the project may proceed without expensive delay, which will decrease the project contract amount or which will increase the project contract amount by $5,000 or less.
Is there any other language in there regarding not working with vendors?
Yes, that's what was added. That's what Bert was referring to. Change orders shall be minimized and used appropriately for unforeseen conditions that occur during construction and modernization products. All change orders approved under the authority of the superintendent shall be provided in detail to the Board of Education at or prior to the next regularly scheduled board meeting. Collections from other responsible parties shall be pursued when the cost of change orders result partially or fully from the errors, omissions, or negligence of consultants, contractors, or suppliers.
Thank you.
Roll call.
Mr. McAndrew?
Yes.
Mrs. Oleski?
Yes.
Mr. Schuster?
Yes.
Mr. Casey?
Yes.
Mrs. Cognetti?
Yes.
Mr. Duffy?
Yes.
Ms. Gilmartin?
Yes.
Mr. Lush?
Yes.
Mrs. Dixon?
Yes.
9 affirmative.
It is the recommendation of the superintendent and the policy committee that the following resolution be approved, whereas the following policies 612 and 616 have been revised by the assistant business manager. And now, therefore, be it resolved that the Scranton School Board hereby approves revisions to policy numbers 612 and 616 as recommended by the assistant business manager. Respectfully submitted.
Second.
On the question?
Yes, could this be explained to me a little bit thoroughly?
Pat Laffey, can you please explain that?
Certainly. Director Lesh, policy 612, purchases not budgeted.
I can't hear you.
I'm sorry. Policy 612, purchases not budgeted. There's actually no revision to the language in the existing policy. It's just an attachment of an official form that will be utilized and presented to the board on a monthly basis. If there is a case where a department chairman, a principal, or a supervisor would like to transfer budgeted dollars from one object code to another. And policy 616, payment of bills, it's a policy that's been in place, and the only modification to it is that we've added that in the bill policy, or I'm sorry, in the bill packet that you will receive, you will also have the remaining budget dollars in the account that the check or expenditure is being drawn upon.
Okay, thanks, man.
Yep.
Roll call.
Mrs. Oleski?
Yes.
Mr. Schuster?
Yes.
Mr. Casey?
Yes.
Mrs. Cognetti?
Yes.
Mr. Duffy?
Yes.
Ms. Gilmartin?
Yes.
Mr. Lush?
Yes.
Mr. McAndrew?
Yes.
Mrs. Dixon?
Yes.
9 affirmative.
It is the recommendation of the superintendent and the policy committee that the following principles for governance and leadership will be promulgated. Whereas the Scranton School District agrees to advocate honestly to promote public education as a keystone of democracy, to engage in the community by seeking input, building support networks, and generating action. Further, to champion public education by engaging members of local, state, and federal legislative bodies. And whereas the Scranton School District wishes to lead responsibly by preparing for, attending, and actively participating in board meetings. Further, working together in a spirit of harmony, respecting cooperation, and to participate in professional development, training, board retreats, and collaborating with the superintendent as the team of 10. And whereas the Scranton School District agrees to govern effectively by adhering to an established set of rules and procedures for board operations to develop, adopt, revise, and review policy and align decisions to policy. Further, to differentiate between governance and management, delegating management tasks to administration, allocating finances and resources, and ensuring compliance with local, state, and federal laws. And whereas the school board agrees to plan thoughtfully, adopt and implement a collaborative, comprehensive planning process, including regular reviews and annual goals that align with the comprehensive plan. Further, to develop a financial plan that anticipates both short and long-term needs, and to formulate a master facility plan conducive to teaching and learning. And whereas the Scranton School Board wishes to evaluate, consult, and utilize appropriate data to make informed decisions, use effective practices for the evaluation of the superintendent, assess student growth and achievement, and review effectiveness of the comprehensive plan. And whereas the Scranton School Board wishes to communicate clearly, promote open, honest, and respectful dialogue among the board, staff, and community, and encourage input and support for the school district from the community, protect confidentiality, and honor the sanctity of executive session. And whereas the school board wishes to act ethically, never use the position to improperly benefit themselves or others, act to avoid actual or perceived conflicts of interest, recognize the absence of authority outside of the collective board, respect the rule, authority, and input of the superintendent, balance the responsibility to provide educational programs with being stewards of community resources, and abide by the majority decision. Respectfully submit.
Second.
On the question.
Yes, in the question, each and every one of us are administered an oath of loyalty. We raise our hand in front of, a legal authority, and we're sworn in. And we're sworn to uphold the laws of the Commonwealth. All right? Now, again, there's certain things in here I can agree with, but there's certain things in here I don't agree with. All right? So I'm going to vote no.
Roll call.
Mr. Schuster?
Sorry. On the question, this is...
Oh, I'm sorry, you're back on the question.
Yeah, I didn't realize we moved on to that. So, this usually is included in our book of rules, is that correct?
It is.
Okay, so this is something we voted on tonight.
Yeah.
This is,
It's a reaffirmation. It was in the book of rules last year.
and it is adopted as policy 011, am I correct?
We've always had this in there, and
Yes.
I remember the conversation with Director Cagnetti and yourself about this, how we should reaffirm this as a separate vote, so I'm all in favor for that.
Well, can I ask why we're voting on something that's already been put in our book of rules?
Just to reaffirm.
Is this another dog and pony show?
No, this was totally my idea.
Well,
Just something that I thought we should bring
Little
up
dog
and
and pony.
remind ourselves
yeah,
about.
just little dog and pony.
I did it in the debate too.
Yep.
I just
Yeah,
like
little dog and
policies,
pony.
no secret.
Thank you.
Anybody else on the question? Roll call.
Mr. Schuster?
Yes.
Mr. Casey?
Yes.
Mrs. Cognetti?
Yes.
Mr. Duffy?
Yes.
Ms. Martin?
Yes.
Mr. Lesh?
No.
Mr. McAndrew?
Yes.
Mrs. Oleski?
Yes.
Mrs. Dixon?
Yes.
8 affirmative, 1 negative, motion passes.
It is the recommendation of the superintendent and the policy committee that the following resolution be approved, whereas the board president has agreed to a new development committee be created, and whereas the board president recognizes the need to increase revenues to support student programs, whereas the purpose of the development committee is to seek funds either private or public through grants, government funding, collaborating with entities either public or private, and/or other lawful funding of any nature to be utilized for educational purposes in the school district. Therefore, be it resolved, the Scranton School Board hereby approves the request for development committee. Respectfully submitted.
Second.
On the question.
I just want to reiterate that Mrs. Kilmer was here talking about a great idea to have people buy a locker. The point of the development committee is to be able to have a central centralized place where we can bring ideas like that. To this point, Dr. Kirian and other administrators have been working on lots of those things. This is an opportunity, we hope, where we can get that information, people in the public know where to come. The president of the board can help us work through how we can best implement these things, and if there are ideas like that, we can share them with other schools.
Roll call?
Mr. Casey?
Yes.
Mrs. Cognetti?
Yes.
Mr. Duffy?
Yes.
Ms. Gilmartin?
Yes.
Mr. Lesh?
Sure.
Mr. McAndrew?
Yes.
Mrs. Oleski?
Yes.
Mr. Schuster?
Yes.
Mrs. Dixon?
Yes.
9 affirmative.
Personnel, Director Casey.
It is the recommendation of the superintendent and the personnel committee that the attached list of appointments, assignments, retirements, resignations, and leaves of absences is approved. Appointments are effective upon receipts of proper criminal records, immigration, and medical and child abuse reports. Salaries are in accordance with the collective bargaining agreements. Respectfully submitted.
Second.
On the question?
Yes, on the question, can someone explain to me, are these all new positions, or are these? I see we have appointments for non-professionals here.
The appointments for non-professional, one is replacing a retirement. It is a person from already within the district. And the LPN, we had 2 LPNs leave. This is replacing one of them. We are still interviewing for an additional LPN position.
Okay, I think didn't we say we weren't going to do any hiring? Do we have a hiring freeze? Thought we authorized the hiring freeze.
I believe that was for non-essential positions. That's what the terminology used.
Well,
has
I'm just
been.
thinking, we've sent out close to 100 Dear Johns to these teachers, and now we're hiring people. Sorry, I totally disagree with this.
Director Lesh, the first one, I believe this was a person that was assigned as a sub or something that was missed. Is it Mr. Gainer?
No, that's a person that is currently working as a secretary in the district.
No. The top one. A and B. A and B.
Oh, A and B.
Wasn't she missed or something?
No, that person was originally appointed as a long-term sub.
Okay.
And then the teacher that she was in for is now taking the